Peskies Pest Control. Put your birds on the run. Call 205-470-8161.
Hey, so today we're going to talk about the house mouse, or otherwise known as the common house mouse. We have some pretty cool video today. We're going to show you a little bit later, but just wanted to go into detail on kind of the what to look for, signs of infestation, how quickly they mate, and just their habits alone, and of course controlling them. So Travis, take it away.
So the house mouse was originally thought to have come from Asia, but it's completely widespread, not just in the United States now. It's in Canada. It's pretty much in every country and on every continent around the world. It's just a very survival adapted creature. We'll put it that way. It can survive in really warm temperatures. It can survive in really cool temperatures. But they're typically, not really big, definitely not large in comparison to, let's say, a rat or something of that nature. Their colors range typically from, a lightish gray, maybe even a little bit of brown on the top of their bodies, and typically a lighter, almost white underbelly on the mouse. If you're looking at tracks, there's 4 toes on the front feet, there's 5 toes on the back feet. They've got a pointed snout or a pointed nose and really, really tiny eyes and ears that stick up with minimal hair on them too. And their tails really don't have a lot of hair either, mostly kind of scaly. So like I said, they're very small, which allows them to get into places that they shouldn't get into. We always tell our customers, a hole the size of a dime. But according to research that we've done, the average size hole on the small end is about 1/4 of an inch. If it's 1/4 of an inch, they can fit through it and they can get into some very, very tight places.
Well, and if they can fit their head through, they can start gnawing and chewing and working that around and making that hole bigger. So it's funny how you said thought to come from Asia. I don't think we know where they came from, honestly, because, with shipping routes and all that, they've come in trucks, they've come in boats, all over the place. So I find that interesting that they think that it came from Asia.
Well, and shipping, the primary way that they enter most of your commercial facilities, when you talk about warehouses, you talk about restaurants, you talk about places like that, is through shipping. They may hide inside of a pallet that is, trucked across, from one state to another to be delivered. And then, of course, coming in from the outside, open doors, or from around HVAC entries or electrical or other utility entries, plumbing entries. They're very, very good at finding, a place to enter into these buildings. And like you said, I like what you said. So if the hole isn't big enough, they may decide to just gnaw it larger till they can get in. And I actually do have a picture. So I was called out this week to a local child care facility, and they actually physically saw mice running through the building, which was kind of comical because the kids got to see the mice too, which I do have a little video footage of that that we'll share here in a minute.
The right place at the right time.
Exactly. But I do have this photo here to show you what I found in one of the closets in a multi-purpose room. So check this out. So this closet backs right up to another closet that opens door to the outside of the building. It's like a utility room where they have water heaters and outside objects for, playing, keeping just different outside toys for the kids. And the door doesn't always shut all the way very well, so you have to really, really force it closed. So I think sometimes it gets left open. But it appears that those mice came through that closet, and then with there being no baseboards in that other outdoor closet, it's like they just came right up underneath the sheetrock or right through where some of the plumbing went through the wall, and then just chewed open the hole wider so they could get through. And you can see these vinyl baseboards that they've stuck up on the wall. They're really no match for a rodent.
Not at all. That took a few seconds for them to get through. And that's for that being mice, that typically when you see that, you'd say that's a rat hole right off the bat. But they did some work to get into that.
They did, and rodents always constantly have to gnaw and chew on things. Their teeth are constantly growing, so I have to keep them filed down to a manageable level. But we've caught so far a total of 3 mice throughout the building. It was very comical. I arrived that morning after they saw the mouse run through the building. The video footage that we're going to show was just not long before I got there. It was taken not long before I got there. And we actually ended up hemming up one of the mice in a storage closet and kind of blocking it off in there. And I put traps in there. And then that evening I went back and we'd actually caught the mouse. But what's the big problem though? So obviously nobody wants a rodent, and they're a lot of people. Some people think they're cute. Some people think they're ugly. A lot of people just don't want to see them. But what's the bigger picture? Why do we not want rodents inside of our facilities and our houses and our commercial buildings and those places?
So, I mean, the biggest thing is going to be just disease. They're filthy. The biggest problem they cause is they get into your food. I've seen them wreak havoc in someone's, worst case scenario, a wrapping paper closet where somebody was doing all their Christmas wrapping paper and they just shredded it. I mean, it was just, so it's covered in poop, pee, paper, baby rodents, just all that remnants of all that. And then of course, like I said, with the food, they're going to spread salmonella. That's one of the biggest issues with those rodents. So.
Yeah, among other things, salmonella is probably the main and primary culprit that is spread by rodents. They usually defecate or pee on everything that they touch, and the rodents are very territorial too. So they go out and patrol their territory, leaving urine to mark that territory along the way every single day, and so it just builds up. And I mean, you're talking about one single rodent can cause a mess, but I mean, most of the time there's more than one. So you're talking about an exponential mess, and it can just cycle out of control quicker than people realize.
Well, and it's amazing how quickly they can turn from, babies to being able to have babies. I mean, you're talking about, being weaned off 19 days, 21 days, and then average about 30 to 35 days, they're ready to start making babies. And then they're going to have eight litters per year, around 40 to 50 babies per year.
Yeah, I mean, the average litter size of a house mouse is about six offspring, give or take. So on average, ideally in nice conditions, these mice can have 48, 50 plus babies per year. Now, in a cooler climate, their breeding may be a little more seasonal, and they may kind of take time off from that until it warms up again. So there may be some slower months, but in an average climate, much like ours, I would say that we're probably having to deal with them breeding year round.
Well, not only that, and especially here in Alabama, they're commensal rodents. So they may live in the attic or the crawl space. And typically we don't get that phone call until they have that major problem. It's not one or two rodents that they just didn't see. It's now 5, 6, 12, we've seen 48 before.
Well,
so,
and a lot of times attics are just kind of the perfect place. They're dark. They're usually undisturbed. If they've got especially blow-in insulation, these rodents can kind of burrow out in this insulation and make their homes inside of that because it's just nice, warm, and comfortable material for them. The good thing about rodents, though, is a lot of times, and they may travel a little further for food, but a lot of times their territory is not more than, kind of 20 foot in every direction from around where their bedding is. So, as a homeowner, if you've got some signs of mice, some telltale signs to look for are the obvious things, rodent poop, shredded, like you said, in that closet with the wrapping paper, shredded bedding material, that sort of thing. So if you haven't caught a mouse with your own efforts by putting traps out and whatnot, if you haven't caught a mouse within 2-3 days, then that's not the mouse's territory. You need to start looking for another place to put a trap.
Yeah. That's the same with bait. So if you're going to put, your own bait out or something like that, if they're not eating that bait within that, 1 to 3 days, it's time to move it around the building, outside, inside, and just kind of see where your activity is. The best way to know, hey, where they're eating, where they're sleeping, all that is going to be droppings. If you're seeing a ton of droppings behind the fridge, more than likely that's where they're going to be at.
Yeah, and if you move a shelf and there's 2, 3, 4 droppings just here or there, then there's a high likelihood that is. I mean, they may travel through there occasionally because they usually, like I said, they poop and pee wherever they go. But the vast majority of the time, that's not going to be in their territory necessarily. So you might want to look elsewhere in terms of your effectiveness. And also some other good things to do too. You want to always, of course, put traps along rodent runways. The rodents run a lot of the same path. They also explore their territory. So another good place to put it, unless it's, it's not on that runway, is in a corner. So rodents typically slow down in the corners. And then the other recommendations we have is, let's just say they're in a storage closet and you've got a lot of different, let's say jugs of cleaning supplies or things like that. When you go to place those traps, relocate some of those cleaning supplies, move them around a little bit. This forces that rodent to not just take the same path, but to explore their territory as their territory has changed. And you can just lead to you having a more successful time in trapping those mice.
Yeah, doze them off, makes them, start kind of rearranging their territory, and they're easier to trap. Another thing I'll say too about trapping is that if you're having an issue where you just can't catch a mouse, bait that trap and don't set the trap for a couple of days. Just let them eat on that trap, get comfortable with that trap, and kind of, add that to their runway, to their territory where they're happy with it being there. And then set it the next couple of days, and you'll catch them no problem.
Oh yeah. Well, to kind of round us off, I promised some footage, so I'm going to show it real quick.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, it's not the best footage. It was taken by a cellular phone, videoing the footage from a CCTV camera system on a computer screen. So it's not the best. But I'll start off with this one. So this is an actual, video of that rodent that was crawling around inside of their multi-purpose room. So I'm going to show that real quick, and you'll see, and he's kind of blurry, but you can tell what he is. So here it is. You see him right down there on the bottom of the screen. And he's a little dark blob moving around.
Looks very confused.
Yep. And he just is exploring that multi-purpose room that's got a bunch of different storage supplies and things in it. All right. So the morning that I got the call about the rodent running through the hallway, a little girl in the program was at the right place at the right time when the rodent darted from one room to another across the hallway. So this is kind of comical in terms of her reaction. So we got this from 2 different angles, but I'll show it to you. And we tried to highlight where the rodent was. It's very difficult to see, so just keep your eyes peeled. Look, the doorway's right there.
Well, you can see when she runs.
Yes. So she turned around and sprinted. She screamed and she sprinted. And then that same moment caught from the other direction. You can see for a split second the mouse. I mean, it's just a blur because it ran through so fast. But she turned around and ran. She was not having anything to do with that rodent. So,
well, and two, I'll say about this facility that had that rodent. If they would have, not called us out to come out there and trap and find where those rodents were getting into, a couple months down the road, you're talking about a major infestation of mice.
Oh, exactly. Like we said before, this can balloon into just a huge problem before you know it. Mice are very crafty. They're very good at hiding. They're mostly nocturnal. So a lot of times you're just not going to see them unless, you happen to disturb them or something like that during the daytime. And, you go into their territory or where they're nesting and disturb them and kind of flush them out. You're not going to see them. So, a building like this shuts down at 6 o'clock, the lights turn off and everyone's gone. And then the mice are left to their own devices for hours, all night long. And of course, with it being a child care facility, there's food, there's snacks, there's candy, there's those things are at this facility and not always stored in tubs or in, storage containers that close that keep things like mice and rats out. So, it would have just been a very big problem, or much larger problem, had they not discovered the mice before that.
Yeah. So let's dive into control a little bit. I know we talked about snap traps, bait, all that. The biggest thing too is getting rid of the harborage areas, sanitation. You know, we see a lot of issues where somebody will have firewood stacked up against the side of their house. That's a huge habitat area for mice, for rats, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sanitation is a huge one. Mice, you know, they may feed on different things in their wild environment outside. They're going to, you know, usually feed on insects. They're going to feed on different types of fruits from trees, nuts, that kind of thing that fall from trees. So when they get, you know, lucky and find a location that they can enter, such as a school, a child care facility, your home, a restaurant, and they get into these places, they can adapt their food consumption. So cleanliness is huge. In the case of a restaurant, if you're not getting all that excess food that either falls underneath the tables from customers or falls up and gets raked up underneath the stoves, the ovens, the cooking surfaces in the kitchen, you have all these things that are just going to build up over time, and they will swap their feeding preferences based upon what's available at the time.
Well, not only that, that's going to attract them to the building. So they're going to start snooping around the building. They're going to find that crack crevice, get inside, and then, you know, once again, they're going to start pooping and peeing and telling those other rodents, hey, come on in here and join the party.
Well, and what other people too don't realize is that rodents can follow warm wind drafts, and they can follow odors. So when you talk about a building that's not sealed up well, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electrical coming out of the building, whether it's doors, whether it's windows, mice, they're not really good as far as their vision. They can't see very far, and their vision is also they're colorblind, so they can't see really well, but they can smell very, very good in compensation for that lack of vision. So you have a building that's not sealed up and it's cooler outside. Well, they're going to go one where it's warm, and two where they can smell something that they may want to consume.
Well, and they can jump, so they can jump a foot at a time. So, you know, if you've got a ledge where it's a foot off the ground, they can jump off that. And then if you got a windowsill or something like that that's open, they can jump into that, and then they're in your home. Same with your pantry. So it's really not a problem for them getting into places.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you've ever caught a mouse on the run or surprised a mouse somewhere and they took off running, I mean, it's impressive how quickly they can scale things. They can climb textured walls. They can climb shelves and other objects in your home at lightning speed. You know, a lot of times people don't realize they have a mouse, and then they see something that they thought was a mouse just because they were so fast and so quick to get away. It just looked like a blur, like in that video that I showed. I mean, even the CCTV camera, it just looks like a blur. So not realizing that you have the problem for an extended amount of time can lead to a very large problem.
Google Peskies Pest Control. Put your bugs on the run. Call 205-470